Hey fly tyers, welcome back. My name is Matt, and tonight I'm going to be tying another Great Smoky Mountains dry fly attractor pattern. This one is called Smoky Mountain Candy. Pretty fun pattern to tie, pretty easy. Not a whole lot of components to it. Got a little bit of calf tail, a little bit of grizzly and brown dry fly hackle. It's got some moose hair for the tail. Let's get started. Starting off with a size 12 barbless dry fly hook, 1X long. I'm going to be using black 70 denier UTC. Lay a base down to the start of the bend. For the tail of this fly, we're using moose body hair. Not moose mane, but moose body hair. So you'll definitely want to put this in your stacker. It's not a real long tail, but it's not too short and not too sparse. That might be a couple of fibers too many right there. I'm going to take just a couple of them out. Okay, we'll go with that bunch right there. A little bit longer than a hook gap, I would say. So let's catch that in about right there. Now this stuff is very slippery and it's got a little bit of hollowness to it. Not so much as, you know, a lot of bucktail, but it'll flare out on you if you go too tight on these first wraps. So kind of a medium wrap and then a slightly less tight wrap going back there. I think that's going to look good right there. So let's make sure we keep it on top and cut off these butt ends. The body of this is, it's called a yellow, a dirty yellow. So it's a yellow mixed with a little bit of tan. And I'm using rabbit here, so it's not a, see that right there? It's not a bright yellow. Well, it looks a little yellow in the camera, but it's not in to the naked eye here. So a little bit of wax on there. And let's roll up a fairly tight noodle here. I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch the next 45 seconds in real time. There we go with the body. Get a little bit of taper if you can. We might have to trim a little bit in a second or in a couple minutes. So for a post, this thing, a lot of Smoky Mountain patterns use calf tail for a post. So this one's not a real thick post, but it's a little bit of calf tail. So go ahead and cut off a fairly sparse bunch of it. There's a little too much. Now you'll want to tie it pointing forward. And go ahead and judge your height. Imagine you're flipping it up, and that's a little bit too high right there, so we'll go a little bit shorter than that. So just a couple of wraps right there. Now lift that post up and take a couple of locking wraps behind it and build up a little dam so we can prop that up. Okay. Now we got a lot of this on the back here to trim. So try not to grab your front hairs, just the back hairs. Okay. And a couple more stragglers here, we'll get those. And let's get this propped a little bit more up here. Okay, that's it. That's about as sparse as we want it to. So for the hackle on this, it's a brown and grizzly. Lots of Smoky Mountain patterns use a brown and grizzly dry fly hackle. So I'm going to tie two feathers on at the same time. I'm going to wrap them one at a time, but I'm going to tie both of them in right behind this post. Leave a little bit of bare stem right there so I can get the wrap started. Now, a couple of wraps on front, just to lock that. Now let's trim these butt ends off. Okay. Now, I'm going to wrap these one at a time. You could try to wrap them both at the same time, but I've found it's a little more challenging, and you'll sometimes mat that post down if you try to do it too much at once. So probably a good 3 or 4 wraps each should get you enough hackle on this thing. Now let's catch that one off. Now for the brown hackle, just the same thing we did with the grizzly. 3 or 4 wraps, try to zigzag it through there so you don't trap too many of the fibers. Try not to push down your wing post there. And 1 or 2 in front if you can get those as well. I think we're about bushy enough right there, so I'm going to go ahead and stop wrapping right there. So I've got a couple of locking wraps behind those 2 hackle feathers right there. We're going to go ahead and trim these off. Got a few pointing forward. Let's see if we can push these back and get this head built out. Might have to trim a couple of them, but I think we get most of them in this head right here. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and trim these. Alright, and I think we've got enough room for a 4 or 5 turn whip finish. Alright, there you have it. Smoky Mountain candy. It is done. Might need a little bit of cleanup there. We got a couple stray fibers on our head, but a little bit more trimming and drop of head cement, and this thing will be good to hit the rivers. So, I appreciate you watching, folks. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.